This podcast is rated E for explicit. The unsaid and the misread has led to many hollow hearts and have also derailed some of our connections that had some really good starts, leaving us to wonder why something that led us to dream of what a future with that special someone could mean left us instead to ponder about what the unsaid now means, leaving us with that slow splintering of the heart as it breaks across and through similar histories, unsolved mysteries that we once left for dead, that we now revisit back on the road of the misread. Learnings we thought we had completed have been eclipsed with the feelings of being defeated. And if in that wreckage our will to try again has remained, we will return to defend where we were once defeated. We will return to learn again lessons we once thought we had completed. We will return to unsolved histories to hear what was left unsaid, and if so fortunate to find life in what we left for dead. You met me in the midst of many things, shedding skin, sprout wings, looking at life as a spiritual being through a human lens, having conversations with God about so many things. This show is your invitation. The poet God is the conversation. I've been thinking a lot lately about that line in that NDRE song called The Heart of the Matter, where she sings, "All the things I thought I knew, I'm learning them again." I suppose that once we have breath, learning should have no end. Although risks can come with regrets, the path where no risks are taken is also not our friend. I have allowed myself to go to places and spaces that challenged me to grow, and that willingness to let go, that willingness to expand, has invoked a force which has transformed me in ways I have yet to understand. In unpacking the trajectory of my relationships, I can see God's hand in how they have been used to make me a better man. That said, like many of you, there are still things that I struggle to make sense of as I contemplate the loss, for the purpose of learning to do it better next time, and hopefully avoid the cost. I'm blessed to have the board on board with me again today as we navigate this conversation about the art of communication in our relationships and maybe how we can find our way. Mindset matters, I think, when it comes to listening and how we hear each other and how we speak to each other. One of the things that phrases that I've coined, I got it from this song called Secret Garden. I think it's Bruce Springsteen. And it just makes me think of this whole concept of when you are really tuned in to your partner's love language, and you're tuned into how they, well, you're a good listener. That would help, right? You know what to listen for. You actively listen. You're listening with your whole self. I think when you've mastered doing that, you can get to a space where your partner feels really safe with you to discuss just about anything that they feel, that they could want to tell you. And they don't feel any walls in terms of what they share. They trust you to handle them and to handle the things that their secrets and their insecurities and the things that they're still sorting out. They trust you to handle all of that with care. I think when you get to that level, I like to call it the secret garden. When you get to that space where, everything in there is just beautiful and delicate and sensitive and all of those things at the same time, and it's if you're in a healthy relationship, I would like to think that being in that space with your partner is also a beautiful space for both of you to reside and to be. Hopefully your home is that way on a whole. So I feel like this whole conversation about how we hear each other and how we, the things that we say has a lot to do with the level of safety that we're creating or that we're capable of creating within these spaces of partnership.
I think just starting back a little bit, a step back a little bit, I would say that even before you get into a relationship partnership, you have to develop that for yourself. Because if that's not part of you before a relationship and you're getting into a relationship, it's going to be hard for you to develop that within your new relationship. So I think you need to be able to develop those habits or traits before you even get to a quote unquote relationship.
So you're saying that the secret garden, you should be there with you.
With you, and maybe a few people, very, very, very few people that you feel safe with, that you can actually cultivate that with. And then it's going to be easy for you to actually portray those traits in a relationship because if you started it there as well. Going back to the part about speaking, I think a lot of times when people say things and people hear it differently, I think sometimes it's because of their past.
Right.
Something has blocked them or triggered them, and they're hearing something else or hearing someone else speak and not hearing you truly because of something that's triggered them for whatever the situation is in something. So I think people need to be aware, and I think sometimes people are not aware that it's happening to them. They get defensive, or somebody saying something like, I'm just speaking my truth to you. Why are you getting so defensive? This is just my truth to you. And something's triggering you to get defensive for something else. And then you're attacking that person for speaking the truth to you of what they're trying to communicate to you. And then that creates an argument about something and then escalates into something else, which can continue.
I think you have to be open, open to listening, open to understanding, I guess, and seeing somebody else's perspective that may be differently or different from your own. But I think, like you said, that's a lot for someone and it's a lot to evolve into and a lot to grow into for someone to really trust. And to what Gary said, I think a lot of it has to be that they trust themselves or they have this sense of not even, because trusting is a two-way street. You have to be trusting but you also have to be trustworthy.
Yes.
So, they have to see themselves also as someone that can be trusted, that is trustworthy, that you can trust as well before I think both people, if we're talking about a romantic relationship, that both people can kind of be like, okay, I can let my walls down because not only do I trust you, but you're proving yourself to be trustworthy. Because a lot of times, you yourself can think that somebody, I trust them. But are you truly seeing all the facets of the person that you're dealing with, and are they really truly proving themselves to be trustworthy? You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
but that's, if you get there, if and when you get there, that's, that's a beautiful thing. I can't say that I've ever been there totally. I've been there in spurts. I've been there for periods of time, and then maybe something happens that deters us from that. So, and you try and get back there. But I can't say that I've wholeheartedly been there the entire time from beginning to end.
I see.
In a relationship. I would love to say that I have been and that I would like to get there. But I think part of that goes into trust. Part of it goes into that unconditional thing, which is hard to do. But I think that's what you have to almost kind of have to get there.
I think one thing that struck me from what Gary was saying about sometimes when you're listening to somebody else and what you're hearing is based on your past and everything, and I feel like that happens probably more so than not. It seems to be, and then this is all based on my experience too, is that people, when they're hearing you, they're either hearing what they want to hear, they're hearing something that they've heard before that they want to hear again, or they're hearing, just another voice from somebody else who said something similar or whatever, but they're not really hearing your words. I actually had a person who every time I talked to him, he would actually say, well, I'm going to do this because you said that. And I'll be like, but that's not what I said at all. Right. I would say this might be something for us to do. And he goes, well, we're going to do that. And I was like, that's not what I said. It's a choice. We have to determine if this is the right thing. You've already interpreted my words as saying this is what I want to do. Right. And so we had a lot of conflicts with those types of things because he wasn't actually listening to me. He was actually, whatever's going on in his own head was actually determining what my words were going to be. And I think that that's a real challenge because, to Lonnie's point, it didn't show me that there was a certain level of trust because there was always an interpretation of my words instead of just taking my words at face value. So, I mean, the combination of those two comments really, it resonated for me a lot because I can see how all of that things have worked in my history.
Yeah. I think that, we're never really taught to listen. You know what I mean? Like, it's something that, and Gary can probably, agree on this part. Cause when I first went to Toastmasters, that's when I started to see the importance of listening, the skill of listening. I was like, wow. So, that's what I was inspired to do when I went there. I was like, I want to listen. I went there initially to talk. I was like, I want to be able to speak in front of people and blah, blah, blah. But when I saw the level of like, hey, and I think just as we grow up, we assume, we know how to do it, because it's like, who needs to learn how to listen? But just like learning how to read faster, like that, we can improve on those skills that I think, take for granted, especially as we become adults. That something that I think this is something that should be taught like at a younger age because we're just not aware. We just hear people talking.
Deep listening.
Yeah, that's not something that's actually taught, but it's a skill that can, like, basically what we're doing is based off of just habit by now.
Right.
Despite of where it may have come from, it's just we're doing it because of this is our habit. But like I said, with Toastmasters, I saw that you can untrain that habit and develop a greater skill of listening. I was like, so I think that has to go back to the person too. Like, maybe I need to learn how to listen. But most of us think we already do. Like, no, you're not listen. You heard what I said, but you're not listening. You know what I mean? Which is two different things.
I think it goes to the point where because I say this, you listening, like you say, you heard me. Whether you choose to act on what I said, that's listening. And that's the whole difference. It's like, you hear me, so you can say, oh yeah, I heard you. And it's like, okay, you heard the words that were coming out of my mouth, but you didn't bother to interpret what I was saying and say, how does this apply to me? And how does he or she want me to maybe change something or understand where they're coming from based on what I heard? And I think that's part of what, I guess that's just like you say, the title is this a lost art? And I think to a certain extent it is, especially now in this social media age where everybody is so used to having a platform where they are listened to. They're not listening to anyone else. They're just they want people to hear what they have to say and hear what they have to contribute because now I've got the floor. So I'm going to say all this is what I want. But we've lost, and I think maybe if we would bother to take the time to hear someone else's perspective, maybe we wouldn't have so many issues that we have now, where we're taking such offense to everything that's being said, because you're not, everybody's got well, my mother has this saying, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. So you have to understand that it's just that how you see things is how you see things. Doesn't mean it's wrong.
Right.
It just means that's how you see things.
Yeah.
But we've just become if you don't see things the same way I do, then we have a problem, or we have a conflict, and that it shouldn't be the way it is. And I think a lot of times that is because we don't listen and bother to understand and put ourselves in that other person's shoes and have a little empathy maybe for what's going on or what the situation is. So a lot of that is, like you said, it's all about interpretation and how well you're really listening to what somebody's saying. But we as women aren't taught that a lot. I want to say.
One of the things that I heard Oprah say over the years is that people are looking for validation in many different ways. But I wondered when I was reading up on this topic is, how are you going to be able to receive validation from other people if you can't listen to them? You want to be validated. That on some level requires you to also validate, to also hear, to also see the other person. But you can't allow them to do that for you. You can't do that for them. So the very thing that you need, you're incapable of creating the space for it to even happen.
Some people are taking it into as criticism. If I'm telling you something, I'm criticizing you, and you're internalizing that, meaning that I'm not enough, I'm bad, or something that's making you internalize that that's a negative coming from the other person. And I think sometimes even when somebody is talking to you about something about yourself, we've already in our mind cut off the end of the conversation, because we're just waiting for you to stop so I can respond to what I heard. Not to the whole thing, but I can't wait until they stop, because I'm going to...
If they wait.
Right, because something triggered them again, and I have to answer this part because it feels like you're attacking me for whatever reason again. And I think, as Lonnie was talking about, people sometimes don't take the time to put themselves in other people's shoes or situations. We don't take the time to do anything. Everything is instantaneous. We just have to quick responses. Take the time to understand and listen. I think for me, a lot of times when people say, "Oh, you're quiet, you don't talk a lot," because I'm a person that I hear everything. I literally hear everything. I listen and I hear everything. And for me, it's better for me to hear, because I can then understand other people. So I may not verbalize in a social setting, talk to everybody around, but if I'm around, I'm listening to everybody and I'm kind of internalizing what I'm hearing, and I'm actually listening to them. And people might think that as, you're not being social, but for me, I'm being social by listening for my personal presence.
That's an interesting point.
But you know what you did, like what you're leading by, you're seeking to understand first instead of trying to project. I need y'all to understand who I am when I step into this room.
That's that validation.
Exactly. If we lead with, let me come into this, even if it's an argument, right? Let me come into this just seeing his point, not even thinking about proving mine, because I want to know where they maybe see that or thought that I went wrong. But you when you lead with seeking to understand first, I think you get a better conversation and a better, you come to a better conclusion after that too.
I think we as women have to learn, especially, and I'm talking love relationships here, okay? We have to learn to listen to our male partners, people we're dating, whatever, more. Men for the most part have a tendency to tell you exactly where they are in life when they're dating you. They tell you if they want to be in a relationship with you. Yes, I'm interested in being in a relationship. No, I'm just dating right now to see what's out there. But we articulate, you're talking to me right now, and so I'm projecting that this is going to be a relationship. But maybe that man has already said that, I'm just out here dating, seeing what there is. And we're not listening because we're engrossed in the person that they are, what they're saying, but we're not really listening to the fact that he's telling you that maybe he's dating you and he's dating Tanya and he's dating, Veronica or Linda or whoever. He's dating maybe multiple people just to see what's out there. And then we get our feelings hurt and we get crushed when that relationship comes to an end, or when he decides he wants to take another route versus pursuing a relationship with you. But some of that is because we're not listening. And they're telling us what they want. They're telling us what kind of relationship they want, and we're not listening.
It sounds like they want to be solo poly. Wow. I'm sorry.
But a lot of people out here are solo poly and don't know they solo poly though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
They have no idea.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you went there.
Did you have any doubts though? For real though.
Take his glass away.
We'll be right back after these messages. Did your beliefs surrounding astrology help lead you to your match? Or did you discover later that they weren't quite the catch? Would you ever go as far as to say that there is a wrong sign for somebody? Tell the truth, shame the devil.
I think if I followed it, it might have kept me out of some relationship.
Do you lean heavily on the stars in your search for love? Or did you get those scars from the fall above?
I date somebody and it's like I can tell, like, I don't know when we gonna break up, but I know why we gonna break up.
The board and I assembled to take a look at all the signs. Those that show up on the charts.
Cray-cray, just because they're a Virgo and a nice kind soul, they can still be a little cray-cray.
And the others that are the matters of the heart. Listen to the matters of the chart. Season 4, Episode 7. And after you follow the Poet God podcast on your favorite podcasting app, a quick search of the Poet God on Twitter and Instagram will connect you to just what we have on tap. And if you're not that social, at thepoetgod.com, we got your back.
I had somebody ask me, is your mother a Pisces? Before they even want to talk to me.
See, that's exactly what I was talking about. That's the too deep part. That, like, anybody who's too deep into that,
and my question to them would have been like, okay, so were you breastfed? Sorry. So according to some of the reading that I did, there are many reasons why relationships don't work out, but a couple of the top 3 are non-acceptance, lack of trust, and poor communication. I want to talk about the non-acceptance part first, because one of the things that I think about, and that kind of relates back to this idea of making the space for these kind of get to know you conversations in the beginning, where I guess requires you to, on some level in the beginning, to create a safe enough space for people to share with you and not be interrogated, about what your sign is and what your mother's sign is and stuff. So, I think that's important. How you show up in the beginning really kind of makes a first impression about, well, okay, what do I feel safe in sharing with this person? Because when you're complaining to me a year into the situation and you're finding out that this person sees this particular issue very different from how I see it, but I'm like, what did y'all talk about in the beginning though? Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, we just used to hang out and watch movies and whatnot. And, we just kind of did our little thing, but we never really kind of got into conversations about that. Well, why didn't you? Because you would think that's what you would want to do if you're trying to date somebody. You wouldn't want to have these conversations. But I think I hear that over and over again. And one of the things that the piece I read was talking about is when they use this analogy of you might be dating somebody who's on a particular diet, but on dates with you, they might put that on the back burner because they just want to enjoy whatever it is that you're doing, right? But when you move in, you find out, oh, this person is actually trying to do this keto diet or whatever. So they can't do that shit every day that you want to do.
Right.
And, you find out things that, oh, well, that's a deal breaker. But you didn't take the time to really have a conversation about their actual lifestyle and what it is that they're trying to, stuff like that.
That kind of goes back to, I think I made a point on the previous topic about some people are so invested into the thought of the relationship, and the sabotaging of that is fearful for them. Bringing up things that they're feeling, oh God, this is going so well for whatever is. I don't want to break this up. I don't want to create any kind of weirdness in the situation. Right. So I'm just going to go with the flow, and we're not going to get into deep topics or conversation because everything feels so good right now. Why even disrupt that now?
Rock the boat.
And so you say a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, now we have to, so all the honeymoon season is over now. Now you got to really deal with issues and situations and life together. And the things are going to start bubbling up together. Now you have to deal with them. So I think going back to the point, people are so fearful of disrupting relationships, especially new ones, and they don't want to rock the boat. And so the surface level conversations are the ones they want to have. We're doing fine. We're going out. We're doing whatever. The bedroom is fine. Why even mess this up? Let's keep it the way it is right now. Because I'm enjoying what we're doing right now. Whatever it is, I'm enjoying this. I don't want to mess this up.
Yeah, I was thinking when you were talking about that, and you're saying, the stuff, the regular everyday stuff that people keep hidden. Going back to the idea of acceptance, it really doesn't even give the potential partner or the partner an opportunity to learn to accept it, right? It really does create a rift there, right? Because that person doesn't know that they should be even trying to even progress towards acceptance, right? They're not even given the chance, right? And I feel like that is something that I've recognized it before. I've seen it before too. And I don't know how you fix that, because I feel like a lot of the fear about not disrupting what's going good is based on the fact that stuff has happened bad to them before, that they've had relations go bad, that they're like, this is going so good. I don't want to throw this. I don't want to sabatage it myself. Right. But I do feel like you're already sabotaging it by not allowing your person, that other person, to see you fully.
Yeah. And that part, I think, is, they phrase it as non-acceptance, but is it really self-acceptance? Because you haven't accepted you, so you go in hiding from the get-go. And now the person feels at some point that they don't even know who is in front of them because you're a stranger. So.
I think it's like you say, people, you date your representative. You date your representative for, sometimes it's 3 months, 6 months, but to me, it's ultimately how long that person can last wearing that mask. Because if it's not innately first nature to you, you're not going to be able to keep it up. So it's going to unfold. It's going to come out. And then you're like, oh shit, wait a minute, where that came from? So, but it is, you do yourself a disservice when you don't come across as your honest person. And to me, it's hard. Like you said, you don't want to sit there and feel like you're judging or you're putting them on the witness stand. But I used to like to do it kind of with hypothetical situations.
Yes.
Because to me, that's the safest. Not saying, oh, what would you do? It's like,
oh, that's not,
well, how would you handle that, in this situation? But it tells you a lot about people. If, like, for example, if you talk about a situation or a scenario with, and this is a touchy subject, but with like a woman that maybe is taken advantage of, raped or something like that. Now, if I'm with somebody and you're talking about, oh, well, she shouldn't have wore that. No. Then that tells me, okay, you're not putting ownership, or you're not going to put ownership or accountability where it belongs. You're going to put it on the victim. You're not going to put it on the person that actually did the deed. So you would be surprised sometimes, but you have to really be willing to listen and to really hear what that person is telling you, and then pick up like, oh, wait a minute, this is really what they meant, or this is what they, and interpret what they're saying. But I think, people don't do enough of that, but you do yourself a disservice if you get caught up in just the surface, like,
you're not going to do that with me.
No.
That just don't work with me.
You got some kind of special defense mechanism going on over there?
It's called conversations.
You know what? I guess I feel like they're still like high on the infatuation stage of that. You know what I mean? And they don't want that to come down. They fear that it's going to come down instead of. I feel like you got to play it like chess. Like, you know what? I know we ain't going to be here forever. There's going to be a time where I'm going to walk in the room. You're going to roll your eyes at me. So let's go ahead and talk about it just now while we're still calm, collected. And you know what I mean? Like, let's see, like, you know what I mean? And then basically you want to see if they're going to match up to the words, but still just go beyond that. Be willing to have that talk beyond that infatuation, but nobody wants to have that because they, like you said, they want to hold on to it for as long as possible, but they still end up getting into that era. But had they had talked about it, or even just kind of created not even talk about it, but create the, like, hey, the invitation whenever we want to engage in this,
One of the things that we've talked about among friends, I think I've talked to all of you about this conversation, but what I'm always looking for is, I'm trying to find out what the nature of the person is. I'm not trying to change you. I'm not interested in changing you. I'm trying to find out what your nature, how you deal with things naturally, what your inclination, what you're inclined to do, how you're inclined to show up. And I try to approach that in a way that's non-judgmental and just saying, well, hey, I show up this way and this thing, or I feel this way by being vulnerable by myself. Right. And I try to see if they can match my level of vulnerability, or to what extent they're willing to match it. And then if I feel, like they're there with me and, step by step, then I go further and see what I get. And I've found that to be, pretty effective. It's either effective in one way that they don't go to that space with me, and then I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. We don't have to talk about it today,
right?
But we will get to it if you intend to keep coming over here. We're gonna get to it at some point, because I'm not fit to do this with you. Like, I don't have time to be pretending and going through the motions with you.
But I think they have to be open enough just to answer it honestly, to answer whatever the questions are honestly, and that's what I find is like when I want somebody that's going to answer the question honestly, not trying to answer the question to tell me what you think I want to hear.
Yeah, Gary talks about that a lot.
Because you telling me what you trying to get into my mind and you thinking about what you think I want to hear is not giving me the true sense of who you are. And then I'm going to be pissed when I asked you honestly how you thought, and then now you show up some other way later on. Cause I'm like, wait a minute. I asked you this, or we had this and thought we had this commonality about this situation or this particular, but no, you were just putting on a front, then there's going to be some issues and some really hard feelings there. Yeah. But I think that's another part. It's like people just have to be honest and willing to put those walls down and just come across and show up with truly whoever you are. And like you said, you're not trying to change anybody. I just want to know who I'm dealing with.
Right.
I want to flip that just a little bit, because that's a great point. But I also think that honesty thing has to stress to yourself. When you see that person is not answering those questions in a way that's compatible with you, you have to be honest enough with yourself to deal with it, right? Instead of being like, maybe they'll change in 5 or 6 years.
5 or 6 years.
No, I mean, because I definitely understand the point. The great points. It's just that I do feel like sometimes we absolve ourselves from any responsibility of actually making the right choices, and making that choice up front versus waiting until your relationship fails. You can typically
some time.
You can typically look back and go, I know they said that. I just thought they didn't really mean it, right?
It feels so good right now. Why do I want to disrupt that? Everything feels good, Calvin.
Be honest with yourself. That's all I ask.
But I haven't been there for a while.
That's true. It's called batteries.
But no, so I do think that honesty is important, but it does go both ways. So
yeah, but that's what I was saying about women and women in dating, because unfortunately we put these limits on ourselves, and for whatever reason, Eve did it to us, I guess, but we have limits on, when we can bear children, when we can, so it's all of these time clocks that women are dealing with in our lives. And so we're trying to reach these goals and reach these plateaus and have these experiences and get into these relationships before all of these time clocks that we have run out. Your eggs are only going to be viable for so long. You're only, so it's all, but then you also want to have a career. So you're only going to be able to do that for this long. So it's all those things. And sometimes when we find something or we meet somebody and we're like, oh yeah, it feels good, warm and fuzzies and whatever. And yeah, but they're saying things. And so sometimes that's where we have to really, like you said, be honest with yourself and really listen to what the person is saying, because you can maybe save yourself a lot of headache and heartache down the road if you truly listen. Yeah, he told you he wasn't really going to be, he's not a monogamous person. Maybe he really told you that, but you weren't listening. And so it's like we have to, like you said, really listen and be honest and be willing to say, okay, I know I said I wanted to be married by the time I'm 28 or whatever. And I've got a really viable candidate in Gary over here. But, if Gary's not saying the things that I need to hear and that validate me and what I want in a relationship, I have to be willing to say, okay, Gary, I need to let this go. And we have to learn to think of it that, you may be keeping yourself from the person that you're supposed to be by continuing to remain in this relationship that's not good for you. And just be willing to say, okay, I've got to put this aside. But just like you said, finding that honesty within yourself and really listening to what that person in front of you is saying and whether it matches up with what you're looking for.
And it can be scary.
Yes. Yeah. Because some people don't start over again.
Very true.
Wow, but
yeah, because some people don't want to start over again, and that's going back to the point I made before. It took them so long to get to this place. Like, maybe I can close my eyes on this little blinder for a little while and continue because it feels so good. And as everybody talks about before, it wears off a little bit, and at some point, you're gonna have to confront these things. And if you're the type of person who does drill into these things, it will come out.
But Lonnie just blew my mind because I never even thought about that time frame you have, like biologically, which is why, like, it is so. Because I'm like, why is it always like I have to have it by this, that? Most guys for whatever relationship, there's no time frame at all.
Y'all still,
it's like whenever, whatever. Because Stevie Wonder, still making babies.
Oh God.
So, but now I get it and I understand it, but I like how you still kind of didn't absolve yourself from responsibility as far as like that's still not an excuse for me to not get deep in these conversations. I know I have a thing, which is why honestly I think you should want to delve into it quicker because you don't have a long time frame as far as like just to do whatever as far as if you want to have kids with a person or
But then it's like put that nest egg aside, ladies, and store up those eggs somewhere, and then wait, but do what you have to do because, like I said, it's a lot of clocks that we work with as far as being women and being females and the things that we can do within a time frame. And so I think that's a lot of that. Like you said, a lot of people send their girls to school, and it's not as prevalent now as it used to be. But back in the day, they'd send them to school to get an MRS degree. That's what you're getting. You're going to school to find you a Mr. to your Mrs. That's what I mean by MRS degree. They're not sending them to college to get a bachelor's degree or anything. They're sending them to school to get an MRS degree to find someone to marry. And it's not as prevalent as it, used to be. But back in the, day, I guess when our parents were growing up, that's what a lot of women did. You were going to college to find
when I was growing up,
you were going to college to find that person that you were going to be, married to. But it's it's changed a lot, in life now, but those time things are still there for us as women. So, but like you said, we have to find other ways, like I say, whether it's storing up your eggs or doing whatever you got to do. But, because we want to have a career. We want to have a relationship, but you want to have a meaningful relationship. So, but it's, we just, like you said, honesty, conversation, communication, the questions, all of that. We have to be willing to ask the questions, and like you said, just be willing to hear the truth and be honest with ourselves and not say, okay, but yeah, gosh, but I'm approaching that 28,
Yeah.
So you definitely, put me on a different frame where we're talking about that. And I'm going back to one of the other list of the top 3 is communication. And just thinking about the fact that many males don't even think about timelines, right? How do you approach that with your partner? I mean, how do you create a conversation? How do you communicate that this is something, it's not really, I'm not just trying to pressure you into marrying me tomorrow, but I need you to understand the bigger picture of what I'm dealing with. And how do you create those types of conversations with your partner or even potential partners? I don't expect for you to have all the answers. I think that we should think about that, because I feel like that is the missing piece, is that it just doesn't get communicated in that way.
No. And I know I'm speaking from experience. I was 28 before I got married. I was 28. But I wanted to have time to spend with my then spouse, before we had kids. So I did. I waited 5 years. We were married 5 years before we ever had children. So we got all those romantic trips and all of those things, because then after that is Disney World and, it's those kind of things. So we got all those romantic trips and all those things out. And so to me, I guess it was considered a little later in life, 32, that's 5 years later. And then, so but I think women have to understand and not put constraints and limits. Look at Janet Jackson. She had a baby at 50, and all money aside, it's still regular women that are doing it. Not saying that that's the time limit and the time frame you want to be at, but, it's just that those time frames and those limits are there, and you don't necessarily know that your body is going to participate or not. You don't know that your eggs aren't going to be viable at 40. You don't know that, because that's why I said downstairs about them commercials, and they fix everything where it relates to men. Women, unfortunately, because when I was told I was in perimenopause, how long is which is before menopause, when you start to have the flashes and, things you start to have those little emotional imbalances. How long is this going to last? Well, we really don't know. That's the answer that I'm told as a female. We really don't know how long your perimenopause is going to last. Mine happened to last 10 years. Some may last longer, some may be shorter, but just the mere fact that because it's a female, nobody bothers to find out what that time limit and that time frame is. Now, y'all, they done fixed y'all, figure out how to fix the little blue pill, got the little blue pill for certain stuff, and figured out how to fix if you prematurely ejaculate, they done figured out how to fix all of that. But you can't, but with us, you can't, I don't know.
Oh, God.
We don't know. How long are your eggs going to be viable? We don't have any idea until you decide you want to try and have a baby, and then you're told, I'm sorry, nothing's working. You're not going to be able. Thankfully, I was blessed. I never had that issue, but I'm just saying. So it's so many things, and we don't know, because the technology and the science is not out there for us to tell us what's going on with our bodies. So hence the sense of urgency on some of our parts. That's why I said to me, I guess we have to almost educate each other and be like, okay, women, put your eggs on ice, because you don't know when you're going to find the perfect man. And you don't know if your eggs are going to be viable. Maybe you're not going to find him till you're 35, and you don't know how much longer, if you've got another 5 years for your eggs to be viable, or if they're going to tell you, you're not producing enough eggs anymore to have children. You don't know. So that we have to start thinking of that and not sacrificing what we really want in life, everything that we want, because of these time clocks and because of these limits that unfortunately our bodies and things have put on us. But yeah, I mean, I guess I was kind of late, 32 with one, 37 with my second. So it's just, and that was all by choice. And thankfully I was blessed that I didn't have to, you know, get the eggs and in vitro and all these other things. But I can't say that for, I'll say my inner circle of friends. Mm-hmm. I'm one of the only ones that has kids.
Wow.
And so, you know, and not for lack of trying, and I'm just saying, right. But different, you know, different things. So you just don't know
right.
what's going to go on. But, yeah. And then, hey, you know, that's why I said it's batteries, you know. So sometimes what you think that man is doing for you is just go get you some batteries and just move on, you know, go get you a yin yang and just be, you know, hey. And because if he's not, that's really the only thing. If he's not meeting all those other needs for you and he's not checking off all those other boxes for you, then that's the only one maybe that he's checking off for you. That can be handled.
Right.
So get rid of him, move on, go get your batteries, and then find the one that you're really supposed to be out there and be with.
And who knows, if you find one that has built-in batteries, you just got to plug it in.
Wow.
There you go. There you go.
I mean, plug and play saves the day. And on that note, we'll be right back after these messages. My intention for this podcast is for it to be an enlightening experience of love. And from what I hear, that intention is being met loud and clear.
This was amazing. I wish every high school senior who's graduating can hear this, and every college graduate can hear this. This is super, super special, and I enjoyed it 100%.
I like where you are coming from, using the word God to communicate to people, because so many people have so many different ideals of God. You seem to be on a higher spiritual plane because you seem to have a personal connection, which is a great thing. We're all God's children, but some of us just do devilish things. I think what we're going through at these times right now with this coronavirus is teaching us we all need each other.
Indeed, we do. And it is with the support of people like you, I will continue to answer the call to share what God has given me, because this is a gift I believe the world is meant to hear and see.
Hey guys, I'm Joseph, a member of the board, which is what Akil refers to as his community of friends and supporters.
We all have something valuable to give. And sometimes it's as simple as giving someone else a reason to live.
On behalf of all the board members, I want to thank you for listening to our podcast. Akil's success is our success, and we want you to be a part of the community we are building.
It's not enough. It's not enough.
Because you are the very foundation we must build it on.
It's not enough to tell people that they matter. We have to show them. Like my friends showed me.
So tell a friend, leave a review, and keep in touch. We want to hear from you because it all matters, just as you do.
One of the top issues that affects our ability to connect and therefore our ability to communicate with each other is the lack of trust. With that, I'm wondering if you ever felt like you were in a relationship with your partner's ex because you kept finding yourself knee deep in the scar tissue of past trauma. And so I plucked that question from this little story that I read. It's a really short one. I'm going to share it with you real quick because I want to get your reactions to it. And this guy's basically reflecting on why he deals with females in dating a certain way. He basically says that in 8th grade, he said in 8th grade, I fell in love with a girl. She went on a cruise the week before Christmas, and a few days before she got back, she left me a voicemail. Instead of hearing her soft, sweet voice, I heard a dude with a southern accent. He said, "Hey man, I just wanted to let you know that your girl is an awesome kisser." It's fucked up. He said, when she got back, she told me that she was leaving me for a great guy from Tennessee. I spent Christmas crying in my grandmother's office while my uncle told me to suck it up. And so he said this experience scarred him as an adolescent. And for years, he struggled to trust women. And he said his lack of trust for women manifested in various ways, not being vulnerable, overreacting to his girlfriends, talking to other guys, and leaving the relationship before he got hurt.
And this started in 8th grade, just so you guys remember that.
Wow.
So he carried that with him all these years.
Yeah, that's a lot of trauma to deal with.
Wow.
I have to ask about the parents at that point. Like, so 8th grade still with the parents, right? Right?
Yeah.
At this point, so I wonder what kind of, because this is something that I want to try to do now, like with my kids, but I wonder, did they have an open level of communication to allow that kid to discuss, how did that, how are you really reeling with this thing? Because if they just kind of like, it's puppy love, you get over it,
And they do dismiss.
Yeah, that's most of the time. A lot of times
that's what he said his uncle did.
Yeah.
Suck it up.
Suck it up. See, yeah. So, that goes back to his guardians, whoever your guardians are. That, because, like I said, we don't know what can form into PTSD. You know what I'm saying?
And that goes back to the point about expectations of men. So we're not supposed to be emotional. We're not supposed to have any reaction to these kind of things. We're just supposed to, quote unquote, suck it up because we are men. So at 8th grade, at that level, that young age of 8th grade, he's been told these things. So he already has trauma from this girl, and now he's been told from his uncle, "Dude, why are you crying about this? Suck it up." So you have emotional trauma that is unresolved, that you went to somebody that you thought was a safe space, your uncle, and they're telling you to suck it up. So I'm not gonna be a sharer in my relationships. I'm not gonna be sharing you anything. I'm gonna keep my emotions all in. So from 8th grade to a whole adult, he is carrying this stuff and developed probably other insecurities or other things that he's carrying with him.
Emotionally unavailable.
Yes.
Yes. That's a big one.
I was just thinking about your original question about, have you been in a situation where you felt like you were basically in a relationship with the ex? And I can definitely see how this story in his situation fits that. And I don't really think that I've ever felt directly like I was actually answering, but like they were treating me like somebody else, right? It's possible that it happened, but I don't know if I've ever felt that way.
Oh, I see.
And so I'm trying to find real life kind of situations where I can say, yeah, that wasn't me, so stop treating me like that. And I can't think of a single opportunity. Share.
I have been where I've been treated in situations, I'll be specific, that you didn't approach me with necessarily honesty about a situation because you didn't think I could handle it, because in the past when you've been honest with other women or other females, they didn't believe you, or they didn't really see the truth or even think it was the truth that you were bringing or approaching them with. So therefore, I don't tell you at all. I don't share. I don't tell you at all, because that's been my past experience with the truth and honesty.
And you know what really pisses me off when they say, well, you women or you men always do this. Well, fuck, I'm right here.
Right.
Like, give me the chance to show you what I'm going to do.
And that was my approach, but that's never been your experience with me.
Exactly.
So if that's never been your experience with me, and you never gave me the opportunity to show up how I would show up, you strictly. So now my name is whoever the ex was, because you totally just based how I would react on your ex, not just seeing me at face value and taking me at face value and allowing me to react and saying, oh, well, we've had this level of trust. So yeah.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of a mutual person in our lives who has a woman problem. And you see the trajectory of the behavior in different scenarios, even between the sexes. So I feel like these things don't live in a vacuum. Like when you have issue, it shows up in different scenarios and different contexts. And, you think you're talking to a guy who may see the same things in the same way that you see it because we're guys, but no, we don't think the same way at all.
Right. And then just in keeping with that, this mutual person we're talking about, we were having a conversation and it was said to me that, oh, well, y'all were just male bashing.
Right.
Okay. Well, I'm here with all of y'all. Do I come across as a male basher to you?
Right.
But that's how that person articulated the conversations that we were having, was, oh, well, y'all, I'm like, no.
And what it really is, a way to dismiss you.
Right. Right.
Because what you're saying is irrelevant, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're bitter.
And I'm also trying to put myself in the position if that's happening to me, where how would I go about approaching, and communicating to my partner that, hey, I just, you need to stop doing this. I mean, you got to figure out how would you make that in a way? Because I'm always thinking about how do you bridge that as opposed to just pushing them off and saying stop. How do you bridge it to the point where that they become more comfortable just with you and not doing that anymore?
That's very near a deal breaker for me.
What's that? What's that?
That whole
treating
thing
me
about,
like I'm your ex,
especially in a way that's I don't know. I think that's one of my triggers. Like, that I'm not here. Well, who the fuck has been here with you for this whole fucking time, and why have you not seen me this whole time that you would be reacting to me like that? Especially, and I feel like I would be more angry depending on the length of time that we've been talking. The more time, the more severe.
It brings on a high level of pistosity. It really does. And you try, and like you said, like we were talking about nature and nurture. And so some of it is maybe your upbringing, or some of it is maybe how you were burnt or how you were, but it doesn't take away the sting that you feel when you're trying to find a place because you're pissed, but you're also trying to find a place where you realize that this person has a hurt and a trauma that you weren't aware of. And so you're trying to understand, okay, you got a hurt and a trauma, but at the same time, I'm pissed because you didn't bother to see me in this entire scenario, in this entire situation. So it's a hard thing to try and delve through.
Yeah.
And if it was a relationship, that probably would have been the point where I would have been like, okay, peace, I'm out. But unfortunately it was not. It was a marriage, not a relationship. So you can't, you have to figure out how to work through it and how to, like you said, that big T word, that big trust.
Right.
That's why I asked that question, because that would be the big challenge is how are we going to work through this? Because I'm not going to be dealing with you not seeing me for too much longer.
Right.
And that's what I was thinking about. So they haven't dealt with the situation and you're in it. What do you manage? I mean, you're in it. You're seeing that they haven't dealt with it themselves, but you're in it with them. So is this do you have to manage now their stuff that they haven't dealt with?
If you have to, in a relationship,
you're going to have to be a
share
psychologist now.
Yeah,
but is that your role though?
Right. No, I'm 100% with you on this one though. I feel like it's an unfair thing for them not to take some ownership of it. But I am also keenly aware that people who are traumatized like that don't always see it. Right? They may feel it, but they might recognize I'm traumatized and I must take action to fix this. They don't always see that. And
then also not everybody self-assesses.
That's true.
That's
true.
Not everybody self-assesses to see how they and to deal with it. Like you said, this guy right here that was in this situation, this is a situation that should not have affected him for the rest of his life as an eighth grader. But it did. But he didn't have anyone that would help him self-assess and let him know that, hey, it's okay how you're feeling, and to be, let him own his own feelings and go through that grief and all of those stages that he's going to go through to say, okay, yeah, somebody really broke my heart. And so when you don't get a chance to do that and you got an uncle, like you said, in your ear that's telling you, hey, suck it up and do it, then you don't self-assess.
Yeah.
You don't do it.
Not funny, but it's strange too that, like, depending on a relationship with that person who gives you that advice, if they tell you like something like, yeah, suck it up, and you have a high value of that person, you start to think, oh, as you're trying to suck it up, you're still feeling that turmoil, that pain. So you start to now add on an additional like, oh, something must be wrong with me because I'm supposed to be able to do this because my so-and-so told me. You know what I mean? So which kind of is funny. I'm listening to all the things that it really does lead back to mental health in the grand scheme of things, and making it more of a common standard. Like learning how to talk to someone that's a professional. Or talk, you know what I mean? Like we're making it where it's not just, oh, you're at the breaking point. You shouldn't have to get to the breaking point to start talking with somebody.
So that's why I think, like, we're talking about relationships, that counseling matters, right? And I don't think enough couples actually take that seriously, because we are all trained that we're all supposed to be super strong. We can fix anything ourselves. And sometimes it does take a situation like that just to get you to be able to listen to each other, right? It's not necessarily always about fixing it, but the first step is for you to be able to hear each other, right?
Very true.
I can't help but think that in this whole issue of us hearing how we hear each other, or rather how our partners would want us to hear them, that sometimes the issue is that in hearing them, or in us trying to hear them, that some of them are saying shit they don't have any license to say. For example, like, don't ask me why I'm coming home late when I didn't know where you were last night. Like I feel like you don't get to ask for answers when you can't provide receipts. I heard this line in a movie. I think it was a Will Smith movie where he was talking about this history with somebody he had cheated on his wife with, and she said to him, when she was talking about needing to move on from the situation, she said, I need to move on with somebody I don't have so complicated a history with. And I thought that was such a good line that it stuck with me. It was Enemy of the State, actually. A movie have nothing to do about really relationships, right? But that line really stuck with me because I think that when you have had so much toxic history with a person, gosh, I don't know, the landscape upon which you listen to everything that comes out of their mouth is so...
It's poison.
It's poison, right? And then when you hear them say certain things, you're like, what?
It could be the most innocent thing in the world if it had been said in a different context, but because they said it to you, you're like, right. No, I know exactly what you're talking about with that, because I do think that... I do feel like a lot of it does come back to honesty within relationships and in that part of communication, because there are things that you probably shouldn't say to your partner, right? They may be things that you may even need to say to them, but you need to learn how to say that in a way that it's not toxic, right?
Yes.
And I feel like
that's art.
Yes,
that's the art.
But I feel like that is a root of a lot of arguments and issues. It's because the other person hasn't even learned to talk to you the right way, right? And I don't know how to fix something like that. I mean, because I think it's a very personal thing. But I think people should be cognizant of the fact of, hey, do I even have the right to ask this to my person, right? And if it is something that really bothers me, how do I approach it in a way that's not going to actually backfire, right?
We go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say you have to be willing to fail at it. Yeah. You have to be willing to fail. Like you have to be willing. Like I might cause an argument that might make us mad for 3 days, because in trying to, like I said, sometimes we'll analyze the best approach, and then there'll be no action, and then while we're talking stuff out, but there's still like either animosity or something, and that ends up showing throughout your interactions, and then what it leads to that big argument that you tried to avoid in the first place. So this is an example right here. Back in, like, me and my wife, before we even had kids, we didn't cuss in front of each other. But back in the day when we first met, we did. We did. It was every word in the book, like, because it was nothing. But one thing I noticed is that when we came time for us to have an argument, like those words would come up, and then those words would lead to like a hole in the wall or something like that. Unnecessary action. So one of our things was like, hey, what if we just like eliminated the cussing? Because I don't like when you start calling me a motherfucker. I'm not going. I don't ever call out her name, but I don't like saying. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Using those words. So we eliminated that from our. So next time we had an argument, there's been no holes in the wall,
Right.
and we try to improve,
Interesting.
Hey, we just like I said, we were willing to make that failure when it comes to communication until we keep getting it right, and then we've improved on that. So.
And I think you have to be, because I'm a type person that I don't think that conflict is a bad thing.
Yeah.
And so I think that conflict helps us grow, helps us learn something about each other, but not everybody feels that way. Yeah. It's a lot of people that grew up not thinking that conflict was bad, or that conflict is, people just avoid conflicts at any cost. You have a lot of people in relationships that's how they are. They just avoid conflict at any cost. So it becomes where you have to learn, like you said, be willing to fail and learn how to communicate across that person. And it's trial and error. And like you said, sometimes you may say it, but I think taking the curse words out of things allows you to really hear what the person is saying. Because if you calling me a motherfucker, and boy, don't call me a bitch, it's on. It's on. So there's, that's a trick. So it's like, no, I'm not going to hear shit else you said after you called me a bitch. I'm not going, because I'm like, no, I wasn't a bitch yesterday, but today I'm a bitch. So it's, it's just like you have to be willing, like you said, to strip down all the little negative stuff and the digs and everything that you want to be willing to stab at each other, and just be able to say, this is how I'm feeling, or this. But back to what you said, I kind of think that to me, I'm kind of like, if it bothers me, it bothers me. So there's really nothing that should really be off limits to what I can ask you if I'm in a relationship with you, or what I can say. Because if it bothers me, it's bothering me for a reason.
Right.
What did it trigger in you? Because sometimes it may be that the problem is me and not them. You know what I'm saying? It maybe it's triggered something back from my days. Maybe I got a little PTSD from some situation or something that happened. And then it will allow me to understand. And then maybe I won't have to come forward with them if I realize that I'm the issue.
I see.
Yeah.
But if I self-assess and I say, nah, it ain't you, so then I'm okay, I need to address this. And then that's, like you said, you got to be willing to fail, because I may or may not come across it and approach it the right way, or say it in which, hopefully they come across and they're able to see my heart in this situation, and not that I'm trying out to get them, whatever, that you can see that, I've got a heart for this conversation. I got a heart for the relationship, and you understand that I'm not trying to get at you, but I'm letting you know, this is what I saw, or this is what I feel. Am I crazy for saying this, seeing this, whatever?
That's a real thing.
But but I think you have to do that. But if it bothers me, it's a real reason why it bothered me.
Yeah.
I think you answered my question, though, because you went through a whole thought pattern as how you're going to approach that. And you started with self-assessment first. And then you went into, okay, now I know I got to approach this, but I'm not trying to kill you with it, right? And I think that that's what I was trying to get at, is how do you do that so that you're actually making progression in your relationship, and not, putting things that are going to be time bombs, right?
This is a real thing for me. If y'all can't.
I'm
still working through it.
You haven't heard enough of mine yet, though.
You working though.
But see,
it's a work in progress.
And I said this about your podcast and stuff as well, is that I feel like one of the things that we're doing here is that we're actually helping people who have nobody to talk to about these things, who can't have these conversations. Us having these, even when they're helping us, we are actually empowering other people, because we're bringing our real thoughts and emotions into it. It's not about, we're sitting here academically, the book says that this is how you approach that relationship, right? We're really bringing ourselves into it. And I think that's an important thing, because I feel like every time we've done one of these, every topic, I've grown from actually being able to express myself and deal with a lot of my own triggers in history too, right? Because, there's some doozies.
Once again, the board showed up and showed out, exemplifying what the art of good communication is all about.
I'm Akil Johnson, the Poet God. Thank you for listening.